But this is why we are where we are. This is why we're out of the playoffs. That kind of effort.
Amidst a crazy 2026 offseason, free agency just opened today, and everyone's busy. You got signings left and right. For people up north, it's Canada Day, and we don't really have time to waste. But the Columbus Blue Jackets, Zach Werenski, Don Waddell, they all just wasted our time. Even the insiders a little bit too, because Zach Werenski, after a bunch of rumors about him potentially being traded, so much to the point where there was a trade between the Blue Jackets and the Dallas Stars, was nixed by Werenski. The Blue Jackets and their star defenseman put out statements saying that he was committed to the Blue Jackets and he will not be going anywhere. So how the hell did this even happen? How did we go from the reigning Norris winner potentially being on the block and even in active trade talks to now committing to the Blue Jackets going forward? So we're going to talk about this whole situation as a whole today. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you are new. And without further ado, let's get into it. So first, let me give some context on the Blue Jackets and where they currently are at as a team, because they're coming off of a season where they missed the playoffs yet again. They last made the playoffs in 2020, and they only have one series win. And it's especially been a tough past couple of seasons for the Blue Jackets, where they have been in the playoff race, but at the very end, they lose their footing and they eventually miss. And that's exactly what happened this year, but arguably worse than the previous season, because at March 25th, they sat second in the Metro Division, a point clear of the Penguins, 2 points clear of the Islanders. So it's not like they were firmly in playoff position, but you were still second in your division with about a month to go in the season. And in the final 11 games of their season, they picked up just 2 wins and ended up missing the playoffs by 6 points in their own division and 7 points in the wildcard race. And after their final regular season game this year, Rick Bowness, who was just an interim coach at this time, and you can already tell right off the bat, he is ready to go, as he absolutely rips into his team for not caring enough about trying to make the playoffs, that they lost their spark with 11 games to go.
Like, I don't know if I'm back, but if I'm back, I'm changing this culture. These guys, they don't care. Losing is not important enough to them. It doesn't bother them. Like, how can you go out and play like that? Should have done this about a month ago. I don't care if it's a meaningless game. I don't care. Show up and compete. 3 hits, 23 giveaways.
Dude, that is worse than I remember. That is you need to go watch the full presser. That is the most fiery thing I've seen in forever. Anyways, Gramps was pissed, and rightfully so. This is after their 6th straight loss at home down the stretch, the night after they get eliminated from the playoffs. This is a team that has struggled to make the playoffs over the last few seasons. Rick Bowness was only there for, a couple months, and took this team to a ridiculous record at one point in the year. I think 17 wins, 2 losses, something stupid like that. Just for them to win 2 games in their final 11 and miss the playoffs. It's ridiculous. Anyways, the season is over, and as we have now learned, Don Waddell and Zach Werenski talked about his future in Columbus. Now, this is where we get into some insider reporting, but now that we've got statements from both Werenski and Waddell, we can kind of match them up a bit. But what was reported and confirmed by Waddell and Werenski today is that there were talks between the two about Werenski's long-term future with the club, and we've seen a lot of examples of these conversations around the league, not just in Columbus. And because of the Quinn Hughes situation with the Canucks at the beginning of last season, where these types of conversations were happening, and the Canucks ended up trading him to the Wild because he was not going to re-sign with them, clearly that has had a lot of influence on the rest of the league and how they treat their star players. So there's been a lot of these conversations, and Werenski, much like a lot of the other ones, has been or was uncertain about his future in Columbus. And because of him not knowing if he would re-up with the club when his contract is up, that prompted Don Waddell to potentially look for trades, and that they came to an agreement that if there was a trade that was on the table that Waddell liked, he was going to take it to Werenski, and then Werenski could say if he wanted to go to that place or not. That is all true. That is all confirmed, but insiders talked about this weeks ago before the draft. So heading into the draft, there was speculation surrounding Zach Werenski. And as the week progressed from the draft to now free agency, those talks intensified, and Werenski shot up trade boards, with insiders saying it was basically a certainty that Werenski was going to get dealt. It was just a matter of where he would get traded to. And last night, June 30th, we learned that there is a deal on the table between the Dallas Stars and the Columbus Blue Jackets surrounding a Zach Werenski trade. And the return for the Blue Jackets reportedly centered around Thomas Harley. From the sounds of it, very much a hockey trade, which is what the Blue Jackets were looking for in a Werenski deal, because they're not trying to get worse. They're trying to stay just as competitive as they are now, just without a Norris winner. But that was the report. And then it comes out that that trade was nixed. It was rejected because Werenski did not want to go play for the Dallas Stars, which probably came as a surprise to many, myself included, but it's not the first time that Dallas has had these issues when it comes to trying to get a trade done with a star American player, as I talked about in one of my previous videos about Jason Robertson. So the trade was nixed. And again, it seemed like Werenski was still going to get traded. It was just a matter of he didn't want to go to Dallas. And then it was reported by, I believe, David Pagnotta and a couple of other insiders that Werenski's reported top destinations that he wanted to go to were the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Toronto Maple Leafs. An absolute shocker, considering a lot of the star players that have requested trades or put together trade lists for teams have not had Canadian teams on them. So the fact that Toronto was involved was pretty crazy. So then overnight, there's people talking about what potential trade packages could be for both the Lightning and the Maple Leafs, and that Werenski has really whittled down his list to just a few involving those two teams. Is this where the Leafs trade Matthew Nyes? And what does this mean for their free agency plans? And are we planning the parade? When is it going to happen? What streets are we going down? How many people are going to be there? So as the calendar turns to July 1st, it turns to Canada Day, and we get news dropped that Werenski actually wants to remain with the Blue Jackets, and that is why he rejected the trade. We got official statements from both Don Waddell and Zach Werenski about the whole ordeal, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but we'll read the middle part of the Don Waddell one. He said, after some time and discussions with his family, Zach informed us that he didn't want to leave Columbus. He has invested a great deal in this organization, and after coming close and falling short the past 2 seasons, his desire is to win here and get this team back into the playoffs. So all the drama over the past few weeks surrounding him is all for nothing, and it leaves a lot of clubs up in the air. And honestly, it leaves what the Blue Jackets are doing up in the air too, because Werenski says that he wants to win in Columbus, but I am not totally sure how he can come to that conclusion with how the organization has been ran while he has been there. A team that has notoriously struggled to bring in star players unless they trade for them or draft them, and even then struggle to hold on to them. We saw Panarin and Bobrovsky leave years and years and years ago. You got Kirill Marchenko open to a trade from the Blue Jackets now. So I am confused that Werenski wants to stay and win. But you know what? In the midst of all of this drama around star players wanting to leave, it is very refreshing to see one say, you know what, I want to win here. I don't want to leave to some other market where it's probably warmer and the state tax is better. I want to stay, I want to compete, and I want to win with the club I was drafted by. It is a beautiful thing to see, at least in my opinion, as a fan of a team who's probably trading their star goaltender. So yeah. But the direction for the Blue Jackets and Werenski is clear. They are trying to win now, and they want to win a Stanley Cup. The question is, how do they go about doing that? Their roster itself and the young players that they have, I do like. I do like Fantilli. I think Ken Johnston shows promise. He just needs to be more consistent. I like Mateychuk on that blue line as well. There are promising parts to this roster. I just have trouble with seeing the vision of being a playoff contender or even a Stanley Cup contender here, and especially if Werenski only has 2 years on his deal, he can say this now and then change his mind in 2 years and go to unrestricted free agency. He has that right, but for the Blue Jackets, it's time to show some action here. And the biggest losers out of all of this are us, the fans, because this has been one of the more entertaining off seasons in recent memory, and we had a major potential deal happening yet again. and it gets stripped away from our hands. So thanks for wasting our time, Blue Jackets and Werenski and everyone involved. We appreciate it. But yeah, crazy situation. Let me know in the comment section below. What did you think of the Werenski saga? And what do the Blue Jackets have to do to become a contender now that Werenski has committed to this team now and going forward? But that is it for this one. I did hope you enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out.